In the last video clip, I briefly introduced what is terrorism, and I mentioned that terrorism is the tactic of terrorism, the aim of terrorism is not to defeat the enemy, but simply to create a climate of fear and apprehension so as to force the enemy to make some concessions, to make a compromise, to accept your demands. Then, in this session, I'll talk about the strategies of terrorism. There are four main strategies. The first one is called attrition, war of wills. In Chinese, it's called 以己击剑. What is 以己击剑? What is attrition? What is war, a battle of wills? Terrorism. They use these tactics by showing to their opponents that they're very devoted to a cause. I devoted to the cause, and I decide to suffer a very huge damage in order to achieve a cause. You do decide to suffer as huge damage as me. If not, then you must give in. You must accept my demands. You must make a compromise. The best method to conduct this the battle of wills is suicide attacks. Okay, I decide to sacrifice my life in order to inflict a huge damage on you, a huge death toll, financial damage on you. I decide to sacrifice everything, including my life. Do you prepare to sacrifice everything to counter me, to fight against me? If not, then you must make a compromise. You must accept my demands. So this war of attrition, the main principle is that the side which is the more credible is threats to inflict huge future cost, and the more likely the target is to grant concessions. One of the best examples is U.S. was forced to withdraw from Somalia. U.S. is the richest country in the world, and U.S. has the strongest armed force in the world. Somalia is one of the poorest countries in the world. It has one of the weakest armed forces in the world. But Somalia is people. Conduct a lot of terrorist attack, including suicidal attack. Then U.S. force, they know that they witness this kind of suicide attack, and they know that I do not want to sacrifice any life anymore in Somalia. So okay, I withdraw. I leave it alone. I don't want to sacrifice anymore. So Somalia, such a weak force, can triumph over U.S. by showing to U.S. that I want you to live, but whatever it costs. Okay, another strategy is called intimidation. Intimidation is similar to deterrence. That is, the terrorists would like to deter those opponents inside its state or inside its territory. If you disobey the terrorists, okay, fine, I'll kill you. The best example is ISIS. Intimidation. If you disobey ISIS, I will kill you. The third tactic is for provocation, or called lighting the fuse. Lighting the fuse. What is lighting the fuse? Make it simple is that the terrorists, they plan terrorist attack. The main reason for them to plan terrorist attack is not to create a climate of fear and apprehension inside its opponents, among the opponents, but to provoke the opponents to retaliate. If the opponents retaliate brutally, then it aroused dissatisfaction among its mass base of support. Then the terrorists can consolidate its support from its mass base of support, or even can win over for international support. The best example is Basque Father and Liberty Group, in short form called ITA, that is in Spanish short form. This group plans a lot of terrorist attacks against Spanish government. The reason for them to plan this kind of terrorist against Spanish government is not to force Spanish government to make concessions. Of course, one of the main reasons, one of the minor reasons to force Spanish government to make concessions, but the major reason is to provoke the Spanish government, so that the Spanish government suppress Basque people very brutally. Then the Basque people are disappointed with the Spanish government. Then it can consolidate the support from Basque people for them. Another good example is, we will not say this is a terrorist, but in fact, tactic is a very example. Why the protesters in Hong Kong set fires or conduct some kind of very radical methods, radical tactics? One of the main reasons is to provoke police, so that the police will use very brutal tactics, violent tactics to suppress them. Then this kind of brutal tactics of police arouse dissatisfaction among Hong Kong people. Then Hong Kong people, then they can consolidate the support of Hong Kong people on the protesters and even win over international support. The third tactic is also spoiling, or called sabotaging the peace. Usually, this happens when a group is divided into two fractions. The first one is for radical faction, and the second one is moderate faction. The moderate faction decide to make a peace settlement with the opponents, but the radical faction decide not to do so. So then the radical faction may use terrorist attack to prevent the signing of peace settlement. The best example is this is called Palestine Liberation Authority. It decided to sign a peace settlement with the Israeli government. The moderate faction from the PLA, so Fatah factions. Then a radical faction called Hamas faction was against the signing of peace settlement. So they launched a lot of terrorist attacks, like firing some missiles to Israeli cities, including Jerusalem. Then, because of this terrorist attack, the Israeli government can no longer sign the peace settlement with the Fatah faction of PLA. Then, the Hamas can successfully sabotage the peace settlement. Sabotage. Okay, then how School of International Relations explain terrorism? Realism, of course, realism is the basis of realism. The main element of realism is power. Realists, they consider that terrorism is just another type of asymmetric warfare. It is a tactic of the weak to challenge the strong. The main goals of terrorism is to challenge the existing established international order. One of the best example is ISIS. ISIS, compared to those kind of government in Middle East, compared to US, they are very weak. So they decide to launch terrorist attack. Then it can establish what's called Islamic States by launching a terrorist attack so as to force the U.S. to retreat from the Middle East region and force those kind of ordinary governments of Middle East region to step down and allow them to establish Islamic states in the region. And the second is liberalism. Liberalism, they emphasize on the role of ideology in motivating terrorist attack. And also they emphasize on how non-state actors they engage in terrorist attack. They consider that those ideology like nationalism, of course, nationalism. I mean, is those national independent nationalism to seek for independence. Nationalism to seek for independence, and also those radical religions. The role played by these kind of ideologies in motivating terrorist attack. And secondly, they also concern about so-called ethical dilemmas in countering terrorism. If a country would like to tackle terrorism, their policies sometimes damage liberal democratic principles. Say, if a government would like to gather intelligence concerning terrorism, they may secretly monitor the phone conversation, email conversation among suspected terrorists. But many of those suspected terrorists, they are in fact innocent. So this counter-terrorist action, in fact, damage the privacy of many innocent people. So liberals would like to find legal methods which can strike the balance between counter-terrorism and also preserving liberal democratic principles. Then the last school I want to introduce is constructivism. Constructivism, particularly one school of constructivism called critical constructivism, they consider terrorism is just a discourse or label which can be used as a stereotype against a particular group. A group, when it is named terrorist, then the society as a whole, or even the international society as a whole, will consider its political cause non-legitimate. Because terrorists will give you an image that this group is immoral and violent. Say, Chinese government give the label terrorist on East Turkestan independence movement, 東突厥斯坦獨立運動. That is those people who seek independence from in Xinjiang, seek the independence of Xinjiang from China. Then this independent movement, when Chinese government gives this label to this independent movement, then China's government will be considered by the international society that it has the rights to suppress this movement brutally, and also can get the support from international society, support cooperation to suppress this movement. Another example is the Hong close to us. The Hong Kong police would like to give the label of terrorists on those radical protesters. If nowadays, why so many people in Hong Kong consider the police force must treat those radical protesters, even their conduct are very controversial, like setting fires, like damaging some shops, very controversial, but they still consider, many Hong Kong people, most of Hong Kong people still consider police force must treat them humanely. The main reason is because they just consider them radical protesters, not terrorists. So the protesters, then you must treat them humanely, treat them well. But if the society wildly accepts those radical protesters are terrorists. They're terrorists. What they do is immoral. They're very violent. They're horrible. So the society may accept the police force to use very brutal tactics to suppress those radical protesters. That's why the police force nowadays try their best to convince the public to accept that those radical protesters in the anti-extradition movement are terrorists. Why? Because if the society accepts this label, the terrorist label on the radical protesters, then the society are more acceptable for some very brutal tactics of the police force. Okay. Thanks for your attention. We'll see you in the next video clip.